My name is Phil Brooks. I oversee workforce development efforts at the University City Science Center. Welcome to What's the Next Move? We talk with a number of organizations and companies about challenges and successes they've had during the pandemic. We also try to dive a little bit deeper into what's the next move for them. So what's on the horizon in terms of hiring practices, in terms of workforce development, and things of that nature. We are really fortunate to have Kim with us, who is the Vice President of Therapy Services at Good Shepherd Penn Partners. I had a chance to meet face-to-face when we could meet face-to-face with people with Kim a while ago. I want to say in October or November of last year. And a lot of the work we're doing at the Science Center as it relates to workforce development just really synergized with what Good Shepherd Penn Partners is doing currently. So I won't steal any thunder. I'll let Kim talk a little bit more about that. Beyond that, if folks have questions, we definitely will save the last 5 to 7 minutes for questions. Since this is an intimate group too, if you want to unmute yourself and ask questions towards the end, that would be great as well. I have several questions to lead us into our conversation with Kim, and then after that, we'll get into some questions and potential ways of contact, etc. So with all that said, let's get started. Kim, it is good to have you here this afternoon.
And I just wanted to thank you, Phil, so much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak about Good Shepherd Penn Partners, and I think some of the exciting work that hopefully we're going to do together. So thank you very much for having me.
Quite welcome. It's my pleasure. So question one, so tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us a little bit about how you got to the role you're in right now, and then tell us a little bit about Good Shepherd Penn Partners.
Sure. So as you know, my name is Kim Grosch. I'm currently the Vice President of Therapy Services for Good Shepherd Penn Partners. I started at Penn Medicine more than 25 years ago. I'm a physical therapist by background, and worked for Penn for many years, and then kind of worked my way through the company. I've been there for quite some time and in leadership now. About 10 years ago, a little bit over, Penn Medicine created a joint venture with Good Shepherd Rehab Network, and it's called Good Shepherd Penn Partners. And so what that is they carved out all of therapy services from Penn. We had therapy services there, OT, which is occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech language pathology, and rehab nursing, and they carved that out and made a new little company called Good Shepherd Penn Partners. So fast forward 12 years, we have over 1,000 employees spread out. We across a pretty wide geography. We provide the acute care staffing inside of the 3 Penn Medicine hospitals. So any therapy happening inside there, that's us. We have something called a long-term acute care hospital, and that's a place where you would go if you need to be hospitalized for greater than 30 days. It's pretty specialized care. We also have a inpatient rehab, which is if you need to recover for about, I would say about 2 weeks or so, and you need intensive therapy, like 3 hours a day. We manage the rehab at 18th and South for Penn. And in addition to that, we have 25 outpatient units that span a pretty wide geography, mostly in Pennsylvania, but a few in New Jersey, and do quite specialized care really throughout the region. I will say our therapists are the best. I know I'm biased, but they are. They have so many specialized certifications and advanced training, and they really treat a very diverse population, from maybe an orthopedic population, which might be like a sprain or a strain or a surgery, to cancer, to Parkinson's, lymphedema, strokes, brain injury, really quite a range.
Awesome. And I like the idea, or not even the idea, the fact that there's over 1,000 employees, folks doing all types of services and roles within Good Shepherds. Part of it is really the idea that you don't have to have specific kind of like backgrounds. You just need to have kind of like grit and will and soft skills and things of that nature. Some skills and some roles you do need those qualifications, but 1,000 is still impressive to hear. I know that number. I've heard the number before, but it's still really impressive to hear.
Well, that's a really good, a really important point, Phil, is it's not all therapists. It takes a village really to treat patients. So as you mentioned, there's so many different levels of care. There's nurses, nurses assistants, therapists, therapist assistants, support, all kinds of support staff, from receptionists to ambassadors to really everything. If you think about taking a patient through their course of care. So it's a really, and we need everybody, we need everybody all in to really give that excellent care.
Awesome. So, I mean, with the pandemic, with a lot of organizations and companies, there's been a number of challenges. What have been maybe like 2 or 3 of the biggest challenges for Good Shepherd?
Yeah. So there were a lot of challenges. I think it was just different in different parts of our organization. So if I think about inside the hospital, the Penn Medicine hospitals, that acute care team, I mean, that is the front line of, or was the front line of COVID. Every day, the changes for personal protective equipment, PPE, it was changing. If you think about, if you kind of remember back into like March and April, the physicians and the hospitals, they were really learning about how COVID was spread from person to person. We're figuring it out every day, discovering something new, even across the country. People are sharing information, really to try to protect, I think, our workers and our patients and give the best care to patients. So just trying to keep up with that information, rolling out new procedures, that was very, very challenging on the acute care side. And then if you think about what the hospitals were doing at that time, every hospital across the country was trying to make sure they would have enough beds for potential COVID patients. The surge, you probably heard about preparing for the surge, and that would be a surge of patients. So we were doing the same thing. Our hospitals were doing the same thing. So how they planned for that was they reduced or drastically eliminated any of the planned surgeries that were happening inside the hospitals. And, you know, we stopped our routine occupational physical and speech therapy services throughout our company. And that was a huge disruption. I mean, we were doing it for all the right reasons, to limit exposure, limit COVID spread, make sure we could care for the patients. But, you know, we are very dedicated to our staff. So during that time, we did not lay anybody off in our outpatient areas. We've diverted staff to different areas. And it really was a challenge every day just to try to keep the operations going as smoothly as possible during such an unheard of and a major disruption.
Yeah, I think part of the challenge for a lot of organizations is they've had to let folks go. So it's always really good to hear that even if their role they were doing for the past whatever time frame has shifted, they still have a job, which I think is something that a lot of folks are still being challenged with. A lot of folks are also like looking for other opportunities to reskill, but I think I like the idea of within the organization, it's, hey, like this role may not be, you know, immediate at the time, but here's some of these other roles still within the organization that you can do. That still like it helps a person sleep at night. They still have a job, they still have a family, all those things. I can go down a rabbit hole with that, but we won't go there.
Well, and I'll just add, so I think the size and the diversity of our organization really helped us during this challenging time. So we had some areas that were so busy and they needed help, like acute care, and other areas that were less busy with patients or the normal day-to-day, and they could help. And then even with COVID, we had to add things we never did before, like thermal screenings and screening of our patients and staff. And I will say our team it's a really great team that works for GSPP. I really do feel like it's a full-on team effort. People were very willing to go do jobs that they really maybe had never done before. And everybody just pulled together and did it. And it really was, I think, very positive.
Awesome. Yeah, that led to my next question, which was what kind of significant or minor changes the GSPP do? You mentioned thermal scanning of employees. Were there any other kind of like major or minor changes, maybe with the building or how like folks had to walk down the hallway, that type of thing?
Phil, everything changed.
Got it.
Everything. Our entire business really did change. But I have to say, I think that we are better care providers having gone through this really huge experience. So things mentioned, we changed our PPE, our personal protective equipment for our staff, even for our patients now wear PPE coming in, they wear masks and other things. You talked about physical changes. So we have the plexiglass shields in places. If you think about therapy, we're a little different than a physician office. So therapy, typically you get your care kind of in a gym environment. So that's different. So we really need to work when we have done work on, socially distancing people and trying to set them up through our facilities so that they're not close to each other.
Right.
Yes, definitely the thermal screens, employee screens, really, honestly, everything.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know I actually went back into 3675 Market Street after not being there since March. And there was stuff everywhere. Like the elevators were already open on the first floor. There were stuff like little, like giant, not little, there were giant stickers on the floor saying you need to stand here.
Yep.
It kind of reminded me of being in elementary school where you saw giant signs like on the hallway walls where it was like wash your hands and things of that nature. And it just reminded me of walking through kind of like just an elementary school. But everything very important, everything very necessary for one, the health and safety of the folks in the building, and then two, just a person's just like mental safety and mental kind of like comfort and saying, yes, I'd love to go back to work. I would like to make money for my family, but I also want to be safe. It's really, really great to hear that GSPP like took time and took care to kind of place that at the top of your priority list for your employees. So that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, and it's not just our employees, it's our employees and our patients too.
Right, yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean, I know that's sort of course, but it really is like a partner. It really is a partnership between.
Gotcha. That actually kind of ties into, well, I said the next question was, has there been any major or minor wins? Has there been any like, it's been challenging all across the board. Has there been any major wins either from the patient side or the employee side or leadership?
There probably are many, many wins. The biggest one that actually stands out in my mind is prior to COVID, therapy services were not on the approved list of services that could be provided by telehealth.
Gotcha.
So that was a really, really big change for us when the Pennsylvania State Board and boards all around the country started to allow physical therapy to be delivered by telehealth. That really was a game changer, especially in the beginning of COVID, because you have to think, everyone's under quarantine. We serve a very wide range of ages, definitely in the elderly population as well. So people are asked to stay home. They don't want to be exposed. So being able to deliver telehealth was an amazing win for us and our patients. So, and this is the first time in history ever. No one has ever provided it before. We're still using telehealth. I think there's definitely a place for that in therapy. As we've started to open up more of our sites throughout the month of May and June, there is that shift back to coming back in person. And it makes sense. If you think about therapy, it's very, touchy and, you want to really see people. But I think that there really could be a good place for telehealth in the future. If you think about different people who might be limited with transportation, maybe some days even bad weather.
Yep.
Today is really hot outside. If I'm an older person or I have breathing issues, I might not want to go out today. Maybe my personal schedule is just so busy. You know, if you could just schedule a telehealth visit, it might not replace every therapy visit, but it might be what a person needs to just be able to connect with a therapist, check out, you know, am I doing this right? You know, the exercise perhaps, you know, or if they have a question. I think it can really enhance therapy services in the future.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Although what I'm about to say isn't directly connected with therapy, but my 6-year-old son does virtual karate classes. And
Oh,
although it's great, and you probably heard him a few times downstairs because he's a loud child, you know, being in front of a screen versus being on the studio floor are two different things. The instructor can, you know, help guide like certain things. If your foot is not in the right position, you can't really like pick up all those like minute details on kind of like a screen or like I'll say telekarate on the telekarate
right.
platform. But at the end of the day, you know, maybe moving forward, a combination of both is probably the best for a patient or the best
Mhm.
for my 6-year-old kid doing karate downstairs right now. So that's really great. That's amazing. The
Yeah.
next question that I had, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, we're also trying to find other ways, maybe not therapy specific, but other ways to use telehealth or perhaps. We're looking at support groups and even launching a few like educational classes for different types of groups this summer. So we're trying to look at even other ways that it could really help people.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm.
The next question that I had prompted was, how has general support changed for individuals who use GSPP services? And I think you touched on this a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
and it says what virtual supports are available. You touched on this as
Yeah.
well, the telehealth aspect, trying to find ways. Now that some sites are opening back up, there are opportunities for folks to come in. I mean, is there any more that you want to expand upon that, or is that just the general sense?
Well, I would say that we're on the outpatient side, we're open everywhere. But even I didn't really talk about it much, but even Tele was very helpful on our inpatient units as well for families to stay connected to each other. And they really had to be very creative on the inpatient side. If you think about, I don't know if you had ever tried to visit someone who was in the hospital during this time, every hospital was limiting visitors really and had eliminated most visitors. So, you know, and if you're trying to think about ways to really keep people connected with their family supports, you know, that technology was really paramount. And we were grateful to be able to use that as well.
Yeah, I know even a few friends of mine's kind of had to sit outside in the
Mm-hmm.
parking lot while their child or their significant other had to go in, which I know is really it's challenging because, you know, moral support, a person who is physically there with you to, you know, kind of guide you through some emotional challenges,
Yeah.
physical challenges, etc., is really high up there on the list. Walking into a hospital or any type of situation like that, a lot of people have trauma over, but you know, having that person next to you is really, really helpful. So it's also really great to hear that kind of like the using that platform kind of not mitigates, but kind of like helps with like easing that tension a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So the next question I had was, who are some of the community partners GSPP works with, and how have you found or developed ways in collaborating? So collaborating in different ways.
Sure. Well, I will say that our vision statement of the company is partnering to realize life's potential. So, I mean, I think that in a weird way, it says it all right
Yep.
there. So we do, because we're kind of small, you know, we're 1,000 people big. We do try to partner, and also because we're a joint venture. So we try to partner with different companies, different groups, individuals, people. Some of our main partners, you know, of course, Penn Medicine is probably our biggest partner because we are embedded in the fabric of Penn Medicine. And we are their preferred therapy provider, which we are grateful to be their preferred. So we collaborate with Penn Medicine physicians, not only really for premier care, but also for things like research or program development or other fun special projects. In the community, we partner with many academic programs locally or perhaps even in the region. So what we do, we provide in-person mentoring or training for therapists who are still in therapy school, OT, PT, or speech, even nursing, pursuing their therapy degree. And actually last year we provided over 30,000 hours of mentoring for future therapy students. And that's a lot. It's a lot. Our staff love to do it. We love to give back. It feels like a rite of passage because everyone has done this in their own academic pursuits as well. So, and then I would highlight our partnership, Phil. So, we just started working together probably I think it was October or November.
Yep.
So we're really excited to partner with the Science Center with the workforce program and work together to try to mentor or train, adults and maybe share our expertise with others. I really do feel like our company has so much to offer, and we really are willing to do it for anyone who enjoys working with patients, who enjoys that feeling of giving back, maybe someone trying to learn about healthcare or even the business of healthcare. And as you mentioned in the beginning, you don't really need to necessarily want to be hands-on with a patient because we definitely have those jobs, but there are so many other jobs as well that support the entire patient care experience.
Yep. So I am coming up on my last question. If folks want to think about their question now, you can think about it now as we answer this last question. So as the title of the program itself kind of really highlights is, what's the next move for GSPP? I mean, there are a lot of, I think, plans post-COVID. There's a lot of plans kind of like moving forward for other organizations and companies. Some folks have no idea what they're going to do next. Some folks are trying to figure it out week to week. What's the next move for GSPP?
Yeah. So I would say our highest priority right now is to get our patient population back, and really make them feel comfortable that they can come for care and be safe and they can get safe care. Unfortunately, as you probably know, during this time, many people probably deferred care from their physicians or other providers. So we really want to get all of our patients back. We want to see them. But, generally, even, before COVID, we are always looking to expand our reach. We want to positively impact the lives of as many patients as we can in our region and beyond. So again, I think virtual, as we mentioned, might actually allow us to expand that reach. But we're always looking to touch as many patients as we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. If folks have questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions. I don't know if anything came in the chat yet, but now's the time.
I have a question. Kim, you mentioned a lot about the telehealth process, and I'm curious if you guys did any training for your providers on how to best utilize that telehealth, given that it's probably new for a lot of folks and, not something they're familiar with and sort of best practices.
Yeah, that's actually a really great question. So as I mentioned, telehealth was just approved in the middle of March. And I would say our team worked together and probably got that functional in about 2 weeks, which is crazy fast, very fast. So, we sort of learned as we, baptism by fire, learned as we went early on. But then as soon as things settled down, Penn offered, because everyone was having the same challenges, Penn offered quite a bit of virtual training and then just even sharing amongst other providers. Some people are very natural in front of the camera. And then if you think about therapy, they have to be really creative in how you can connect to a patient through a camera for therapy and demonstrate exercises perhaps, or really try to understand what is going on with that patient. So we are still learning, I'll say that, and are open to help always and other resources.
Thank you.
Other questions? I can interject here and say with a point of pride, and I'm associated with these folks. So the folks from Venture Cafe, Venture Cafe Philadelphia, there's other venture cafes across the world, across the country, and Philadelphia was one of the first venture cafes to go virtual when everything kind of hit. So Venture Cafe is usually very accustomed to having a lot of people in the 3675 Market Street location. But switching over the virtual was, I don't even work for the Venture Cafe team. I like those folks, but it's just one of those things where we're all learning together. It's something that folks may or may not have the expertise for, but in month 2, month 3, whatever time situation we're in right now, a lot of folks seem to be more comfortable with virtual kind of practices.
Definitely. Yeah. We're all in front of that camera now all the time.
all the time.
Can't
Try
be
to make
shy
sure
anymore.
I look, gotta shape up the beard a little bit, do something.
Yeah.
All right, we are coming up on the end of our time. Kim, if there's folks who want to get in contact with you, is there an easy way for them to do so? Can they email you? Could they go on Good Shepherd website?
Yep. So yes, the easiest way is through our main website, which is penpartners.org. And then also personally, I'm on LinkedIn. I think I'm pretty easy to find there. So probably those are 2 of the easiest places.
Got it. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you all for joining. I really appreciate this. I think this was our 6th iteration of this. I think after 6 times, it's gotten like really interesting and the conversation has gotten really amazing. So definitely thank you for your time. There's other Venture Cafe sessions throughout the evening. Am I stealing your job, Jake? Are you supposed to say that? Or am I? It doesn't matter. There's other Venture Cafe sessions happening throughout the evening. Please check them out. And thank you for tuning in for Workforce Development. And what's the next move?
And thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.